Hey, welcome to Mary's Recaps channel. Today we will be talking about a fantasy horror film called Jennifer's Body. Be careful, spoilers ahead. At the beginning of the film, we are shown a standard house of the American hinterland. It's worth the late evening. A beautiful brunette is lying on the bed in the room. Apparently, she is going to sleep, watching TV and bored. Suddenly, the camera pans to the window, showing us a blonde woman with a hood pulled over her forehead, looking at the girl through the glass unkindly. She feels the look, quickly turns around, but there is no one outside the window. Then we see the same blonde. Now she is in a hospital for mentally ill criminals and feels good there. The girl explains to the audience that every day she receives letters and gifts from fans, which are now lying in disarray on the floor of the hospital ward. When she is about to go for a walk, the narrator changes her clothes, and we see ugly scars on her body, but the girl does not say anything about them. She wanders around the yard, enters the dining room, arguing that everything here is designed to suppress the will of the prisoners, but this will not work with her. As if to prove her words, the girl severely beats the nurse who made a remark to her in the face, fights with the clinic staff and ends up in a solitary ward with bare walls.
I wasn't always this cracked. I used to be normal.
After a while, a pleasant melody begins to pour into the vent under the ceiling, but the prisoner in a rage plugs her ears with her hands. This song makes the girl mentally return to the past. Now the main plot of the movie begins. In a small American town, the only attraction of which is the Devil's Cauldron waterfall, flowing into the unknown depths of the earth, three teenagers live their ordinary lives. The inconspicuous school band drummer Chip, the super sexy Jennifer, the first beauty of the city and the captain of the cheerleading squad, and the ugly duckling Anita, an unremarkable girl in glasses and modest outfits. Despite the difference in character and appearance, Anita and Jennifer have been friends since childhood, so much so that they wear the same medallions, and some at school call them lesbians. True, this friendship is unequal. The bright and assertive Jennifer commands the blonde with might and main, dictates to her the rules for choosing clothes, and sometimes treats her friend very rudely. But Anita does not think to be offended, taking everything for granted. And now she has to give up the idea of spending a romantic evening with Chip and instead go with Jennifer to a concert of the rock and roll band Low Shoulder, whose lead singer is in love with a friend. It's just a shame that the club is more like a hangout, and the musicians begin to immediately discuss a beautiful fan in the most obscene way. Accidentally overhearing their conversation, an outraged Anita stands up for Jennifer's honor and rashly lies that she is still a virgin. At the height of the concert, a fire starts in the club. Anita manages to get out of the fire and pull out her friend, who is in an incomprehensible besotted state, but a minute later Jennifer gets into the musician's van and leaves, leaving the blonde alone. Anita realizes that something is wrong, gets home and tries to call for help, but suddenly her friend appears in front of her, bloodied, in torn clothes, but smiling. The girl behaves strangely. Instead of calling an ambulance and lying down on the sofa to recover from blood loss, she snatches some food from the refrigerator, scares the blonde with an inhuman belch, laughs wildly, and to top it off, she is sick of a terrible black goo. Finally, Jennifer leaves, leaving her on a hot kiss on Anita's neck. In the morning, she appears at school as if nothing had happened. Jennifer is calm, smiling and giggling merrily as the teacher talks about the people burned in the fire. After the lessons, the girl approaches the captain of the football team, Dirk, who lost his friend yesterday, flirts with the guy and takes him into the forest with her. Enchanted Dirk is delighted with the attention of the most desirable beauty of the school. He is not embarrassed by the forest animals gathered in the clearing, nor by the force with which Jennifer tears the t-shirt. However, instead of the expected love pleasures, the poor fellow will have to become a dinner for Jennifer, who turns into a monster and tears her unfortunate lover with her fangs. In the evening, Jennifer calls Anita, chatting about trifles and exploring her new opportunities along the way. It turns out that now she is not at all afraid of injury. For example, you can burn your tongue with a lighter and not feel pain, and in a second it will be like new again. But Anita is not up to talking. She runs to meet Chip, from whom she learns about Dirk's death. The girl is sure that all the tragic events in the Devil's Cauldron are links in one chain. The days go by. The Low Shoulder group releases a single in memory of the tragedy, which terribly outrages Anita. The musicians shamelessly make a name for themselves on someone else's misfortune, telling the gullible press how bravely they saved people from the fire and held charity events in which 3% of the proceeds go to charity. However, her indignation does not interest anyone. But Jennifer looks worse. The skin is flaky, the hair looks like tow, as if something is missing in the girl's diet. And she also agrees to a date with Colin, a goth guy who was not interested in the beauty before. Perhaps Anita would have thought about it, but her thoughts are on Chip, who seems ready to move on, even bought condoms. While Anita and Chip are having a good time, Colin arrives at Jennifer's given address. The house is boarded up, the windows are covered with foil. It seems that no one has lived here for a long time. Not wanting to retreat, Colin enters the dwelling and becomes a new victim of the entity that has taken possession of the girl. Anita at this time is haunted by visions of blood pouring from the ceiling and a dead Dirk sitting in a chair with a grinning Jennifer perched on the back. In a panic, the girl rushes home and almost hits her friend, who crosses the road in blood-soaked clothes. True, the car got much stronger from the collision, but the brunette was not injured. Enraged, she throws herself at the glass, forcing Anita to step on the gas. The girl gets home and begins to feel relatively safe. It wasn't there. In bed, Jennifer is waiting for her, washed from the blood, fresh and cheerful, exactly like in childhood, when they spent the night at each other's. The brunette behaves surprisingly frivolously, as if she had not just walked along the road in the form of a vampire who had dinner. She tries to get Anita into a kiss, but when the girl breaks out, she agrees to tell her what happened. It turns out that the musicians were looking for a virgin for sacrifice in order to appease the dark forces and achieve fame. Jennifer seemed to them an ideal candidate, but either the unsuccessful sectarians violated the rite, or the Prince of Darkness was indignant at the fact that they slipped him not an innocent girl, but the girl did not die on the altar over the devil's cauldron. Instead, she woke up in the surrounding forests, ragged and hungry, wandered off to visit a friend, met on the way a familiar Indian Ahmed, who was trudging home from a fire, and suddenly realized that she was not averse to having a bite of human flesh. Since then, Jennifer has been in excellent spirits, feels great and remains virtually invulnerable to damage. But only as long as she's full. Frightened, Anita asks what the last phrase means, but the girl does not answer. She laughingly advises her friend to share her conclusions with someone. Since Anita does not want to see Jennifer in her house anymore, she jumps out of the second-floor window and disappears into the night. The city returns to normal, and Anita burrows headlong into occult literature, hoping to find a way to deal with the demon. The books say that only a blade pierced through the heart can strike him. Anita tells Chip everything, but he does not believe the girl and says that she needs help. Meanwhile, the school is planning a prom, at which the low-shoulder group is called to perform. The teenagers in the city are actively preparing for the dance, including Chip, who decided to go to the party despite Anita's requests. Before leaving, the mother gives the guy a gas canister, reminding him that a maniac lurks somewhere in the town. Preening in front of the mirror and Jennifer. Her face looks tired, and her hair falls out in whole strands. It's time to feed the demon. The girl goes to the school on foot, and in the park, she meets Chip walking alone in the dark. Pretty Woman is not difficult to carry him away from the road under the pretext of talking about Anita. Feigning pangs of conscience, Jennifer tells Chip that her friend cheated on him with the recently murdered Colin, and then begins to seduce the guy and takes him to the building of an abandoned pool. At school, Anita watches the musicians perform with disapproval when a supernatural feeling tells her that Chip is in danger. The girl runs to the pool, where Jennifer drinks blood from the bitten neck of the guy. The brunette immediately hides in the water to suddenly emerge and attack, but Chip manages to throw a gas canister into Anita's hands. A jet of poisonous liquid makes Jennifer recoil. She effectively hangs over the water, throwing reproaches in the face of her friend in envy of her beauty and popularity. The blonde replies that it was Jennifer who decided to choose from all the guys at Chip's school, because she is not sure of herself and wants to get what Anita has. The girl's quarrel is ended by Chip himself. He gathers the last of his strength and stabs Jennifer through with the handle of a pool net. This stops the girl, but does not kill her. On the contrary, she pulls the weapon out of her body and ironically asks Anita if she has a tampon. However, Jennifer has already calmed down a bit. She climbs out the window and runs away while her ex-girlfriend sobs over the dying Chip. The next shot takes us back to the beginning of the film, where Anita is watching through the glass as Jennifer is lying on the bed. She breaks into the room and tries to kill her opponent with a clerical knife. The demon-possessed girl successfully resists and flies up to the ceiling with her rival, but when Anita rips a pair of pendants from her neck, a sign of old friendship, the blonde manages to pierce the girl's heart with a knife. Jennifer's mother runs into the room, attracted by the noise. Exhausted, Anita falls on the bed next to the body of her murdered friend. We are shown the solitary confinement where Anita is serving her sentence for assaulting the orderlies. She continues to talk about how she is changed because of what happened, and then adds that a person bitten by a demon acquires paranormal abilities. It is this bite mark that can be seen on Anita's body. A plate of food is pushed through the window under the door, but at that time the girl is floating in the air under the ceiling of the cell. Having learned to control her powers, Anita leaves the hospital at night, breaking through the walls and bars on the way. Not far from the hospital in a stream, she finds a knife. Nearby, red floats dangle in the water, which scientists threw into the Devil's Cauldron to find out where its waters flow. It becomes clear, this is the same knife that the musicians used to make a sacrifice over the waterfall. Anita picks up her weapon, walks towards the highway, and stops a passing car. She informs the driver that she is looking for a popular rock band touring in these parts, and adds that today the musicians have their last concert. Together with the credits, viewers are shown pictures from the hotel room of the Low Shoulder Group, which depict the corpses of its members, bloody splashes and complete destruction. The last frame is the CCTV footage showing Anita. The girl leaves the crime scene after taking revenge on the musicians for her friend and Chip. That's all. This is such a promising ending. With you as Mary, see you in the next videos, bye bye.